Alright there geezers, Jules here, and much as we might use video games to escape the tedium of everyday life, sometimes an ultra-realistic game brings us straight back down to earth and it scratches that itch. And you know what? These games are so true to life in some regards that it borders on being genuinely uncanny. From titles that seek to impart immersion like no other, to those that have graphical fidelity so fine you can see the pores on the nose of some characters, the following games are really, well, real. And you know what else is the real deal? Bobinator's comment from last week's video, which is making its way into this one as a full-fledged entry. And if you want to be part of next week's video, then have a think about what you reckon was the best and most hyped video game announcement ever. But with this in mind, let's have a chat, as I'm Jules, this is FGS, and these are 10 ultra-realistic upcoming video games. Number 10. Unrecord. Now let's kick things off with by far the most controversial game on this list, queasily photorealistic first-person shooter Unrecord. Now Unrecord's big hook is that players control a tactical police officer from the viewpoint of their body camera as they explore various godforsaken locales and gun down perps of ambiguous guilt. The game's jaw-droppingly true-to-life visuals quickly made it a viral hit, with many even scarcely able to believe that Unrecord was a fully functioning video game rather than an extremely well-produced tech demo. But Unrecord is indeed a game, employing clever subtleties of camera movement, lighting, and lens distortion to deliver one of the most immersive and realistic-looking shooters ever produced. In fact, some argued that given the subject matter, it might be a bit too realistic for its own good. Nevertheless, it's already ushered in a glut of Me Too imitators, such as multiplayer shooter Bodycam, which actually ended up beating Unrecord to market with its recent early access debut. Number 9. Kingdom Come: Deliverance 2. Now, Kingdom Come: Deliverance is the rarest of video games, one that is so pathologically obsessed with realism that some even complained that it worked against its fun factor. As a depiction of life in 15th century Bohemia, the original game touted a mesmerizing level of detail, from its period-accurate food and drink to the weighty physics-based combat systems, the latter ensuring that you were basically guaranteed to die a hell of a lot. Elsewhere, you had hunger and sleep systems to manage, and the game overall seemed wholly concerned with presenting you as anything but a cookie-cutter hero, even stripping away most of the fantastical elements that you'd expect from a medieval-flavored RPG. And the upcoming sequel seems to be upholding that insane commitment to reality, with an eye-watering boost in visual fidelity that nevertheless avoids looking excessively stylized. It is earthy greens and browns for days, my dude. And speaking of which, Deliverance 2 also boasts a sprawling map that is said to be twice the size of its predecessor. Now, the original game's surprise success basically seems like it emboldened Warhorse Studios to make the sequel even more bewilderingly immersive in every possible way. Number 8. Microsoft Flight Simulator 24. And now we turn to Bobinator's suggestion for this list, and as they put it themselves, this was a pretty easy layup when it came to realism, because you know what? Microsoft Flight Simulator has it all, and I mean that in a literal sense, as it's mapped the entire bloody world for this game. On top of this, it's implemented realistic weather simulations which can be tied to real-time weather reports, meaning that if there's a storm over Swansea right this second, you can bloody well fly right on through it. Honestly, if it wasn't uncanny enough to fly over your actual house, doing so with the weather matching it 1-to-1 and with graphics this good will make you want to look out of the window to see whether your digital plane is actually flying overhead, which I'm glad isn't the case, because I absolutely suck at these types of games. I tell you one thing though, with a game this realistic, Flight Simulator really doesn't have many more places to go, unless they add in the much requested Baggage Claim Simulator add-on that we've clearly all been begging for. Number 7. inZOI. Now, The Sims might have dominated the life sim genre for the last quarter century. Do you feel old yet? But South Korean god game inZOI looks like it's going to challenge its hallowed crown. inZOI lets players create their own avatar and send them out into a richly detailed open world sandbox where they can do, well, basically anything they want. While The Sims shrewdly opts for a more cartoonish art style, inZOI is aiming for extreme photorealism, and per Unreal Engine 5 is committed to delivering the most visually authentic life sim ever made. Though, like Unrecord, the gameplay reveal definitely seemed too good to be true to some players, and so developer Krafton insists that this game is nearing completion and remains on track for release later this year. And if it lives up to the hype of its immersive sales pitch, inZOI could invigorate a genre that's honestly felt stagnant and played out for many a year. Number 6. Stalker 2: Heart of Chernobyl. The long-awaited sequel to beloved survival horror game Stalker: Shadow of Chernobyl has a lot to live up to, given the original's emphasis on creating a totally plausible post-apocalyptic world, where the player has to contend with hunger, radiation, bleeding, and impressively intelligent wildlife. As the first entry into the series in 15 years, Stalker 2 promises to amp up the sense of realism considerably. First and foremost, it's obviously an astonishing-looking game, from the first-rate character models to the authenticity with which the real Chernobyl has been captured. And even accepting Stalker's rooting in science fiction as the player contends with both mutated creatures and strange anomalies, the game is wholly concerned with creating an internally plausible world. Stalker 2 will tout a revised version of the original game's life simulating system, intended to make the world feel more alive than ever before, where humans and animals are constantly doing things even when they're not on screen. The scale and ambition of this game speaks for itself, and after so long in development, expectations are understandably through the roof. Number 5. Instinction. Now, while dozens of us still pester Capcom to finally pull their finger out and make a new Dino Crisis game, Instinction certainly looks like a stunning dino-centric action-adventure game to tide us over for a good while. Players control a young ecologist who finds herself in a hidden civilization populated by living dinosaurs. And even though the game reportedly features sci-fi elements and supernatural abilities, the moment-to-moment exploration, well, it kind of looks jaw-droppingly true to life. The vibrant island environment looks good enough to eat, and while the dinosaurs are quite arguably the most visually impressive ever featured in a video game, all of this is courtesy of the sheer technomancy that is Unreal Engine 5. Developers Hashbane Interactive have also confirmed that they've consulted with paleontologists, and the game will feature the most precious of all things, feathered dinosaurs. Imagine that! Beyond this, Instinction will require you to forage, tend to injuries, and use weapons in your quest for survival, all of which adds up to what should be an awe-strikingly believable open-world survival experience. Number 4. The next Battlefield. The upcoming, still untitled new Battlefield game seems like it's going to mark a major turning point for the franchise, with EA confirming that the FPS is currently being worked on by the biggest team in the series' history. More to the point, a recent job listing for the game suggests that it's aiming to deliver the most realistic destruction effects the games industry has ever seen, which is quite a bloody claim. Environmental destruction has been in Battlefield's DNA for a long time, and in an increasingly stacked competitive multiplayer shooter space, it absolutely makes sense for EA to do everything in their power to wow players. Reports indicate that the game will also focus on military realism, with the production recently hiring 2 military veterans to consult on Battlefield's weapon mechanics. Given that Battlefield's more realistic skewing gameplay has always helped differentiate it from Call of Duty, it's probably not a bad idea to lean further into this. Number 3. City 20. For anyone who finds Fallout a little bit too cartoonish, City 20 might be for you. This open-world survival sandbox game takes place in a city that's been quarantined following a radioactive leak, leaving the residents to fend for themselves, or more likely, starve to death. It's a fascinatingly bleak setup, as players are tasked with making relationships within the city's patrolled walls, scavenging finite resources, and plotting to make an escape. Developer Untold Games promises that the game world will adapt reactively to your decisions and actions, allowing you to stabilize this insular society or destroy it from within. Furthermore, each of the game's NPCs has unique traits and a specific role within the city's society, so don't expect any copy-paste laziness here. Also, don't count on the more stylized grimness of the Fallout games. City 20 is all about presenting a more pared-down aesthetic, defined by a deeply muted color palette that accentuates the mundanity of surviving in an uncaring world. Sounds like great fun, doesn't it? Number 2. Industria 2. Horror-tinged sci-fi FPS Industria was largely well received when it launched in 2021, taking place in a dystopian parallel dimension in Cold War-era East Berlin. But the upcoming sequel looks set to take everything to the next level. Now, the first thing to notice from the gameplay footage that's been released so far is that this follow-up has enjoyed a massive visual uptick from its predecessor. The environments, weapons, and overall lighting effects are simply phenomenal for a lower-budget indie project, with developer Bleak Mill promising a slower-paced, more detail-oriented action-adventure for maximum immersion. In addition to featuring staples of realism like crafting, Industria 2 will also tout a diegetic inventory system which keeps players within the game world rather than dragging them out of it to a menu. Despite its commitment to capturing the finer intricacies of movement and survival, Bleak Mill has also guaranteed that their sequel won't be yet another gorgeous bloatfest, with a playtime somewhere between 4 and 6 hours. You love to see it, but with how eye-poppingly beautiful this game world looks, you might actually want to stay in it for a little longer than that. And number 1, Grand Theft Auto 6. And finally, this list simply wouldn't be complete without Grand Theft Auto 6, which seems set to serve up yet another mind-bogglingly lived-in world from the wizards at Rockstar Games. Though we've seen only a few slivers of gameplay from the revealed trailers so far, it's clear that GTA 6 is going to deliver one of the richest, most persuasive open worlds ever conceived. It's just the Rockstar way. They're experts in using NPCs and dynamic events to make their worlds feel alive, combined of course with a virtually peerless technical presentation in the open world sphere. Rockstar has even promised that the game will feature groundbreakingly realistic character animations beyond which gaming just hasn't seen before, where character movements will change depending on the weather, their injuries, and even their energy levels at a given moment. Nobody does big-scale AAA attention to detail quite like Rockstar, and there's no doubt that they'll stun us all once again whenever GTA 6 finally ends up in our grubby mitts. And there we go, my friends, those were 10 ultra-realistic upcoming video games. Hope you enjoyed that, and if you'd like to be part of next week's video, then have a think about what you pick as one of the best and most hyped up video game announcements. As always, I've been Jules. You can go follow me over on Instagram and AX, where it's at RetroJ, but the O is a 0. Hope that you're treating yourself well, my friend, with love and respect, because you deserve the bloody best, and do not let anything or anyone else tell you otherwise, right? You massive ledge, get out there and smash it today. I believe in you. As always, I've been Jules. You have been awesome. Never forget that. I'll speak to you soon. Bye.